Friends, welcome to the first episode of our crypto show. I'm Ben. This is my dad.
I'm the Grand Tonto.
The Grand Tonto.
The Grand Tonto.
Yes. I work in the industry. We've been crypto degens for me a few years. He just started recently, and this is crypto for the common man. We're going to help you out, tell you what we're doing, and we hope you enjoy it.
Really excited for this, man. I might be the oldest man in crypto, but I'm loving it so far.
Let's dive in.
So we're back. I think we should explain where we're at. We're actually in Sorrento in Italy, not the United States. We're obviously from the US, but we're in Italy right now. And one of the reasons we're in Italy right now is because EigenLayer was good enough to take my money, but made me travel all the way here to collect my meager points, because even after 3 months, they couldn't count out my LRT points I had. So I came all this way to collect 110 points. You know, that seems kind of strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think they had some pretty bad communication, and I think like the user communication being really clear about what you're doing is the key with most of these airdrops. And the one thing, they accepted your deposits from people in the United States. They did not geoblock anyone, but when it came time to claim, they did, which I think was the main issue here.
Yeah, it was a huge issue, and how there's going to be a lot of people that can't do that or have to use the browser hacks that are floating around the internet that work sometimes, don't work other times, stuff like that. But that kind of brings into a bigger point here about the airdrops this season in the let's call it the 2024 bull market run or whatever the season we're in. And that's, there's been this movement to restricting airdrops or changing airdrops in ways that they didn't do in the past. And one of the big ones now is using points directly, or points instead of tokens directly.
Yeah, I think the regulatory hostility in the United States is a big reason for this, and you can't really blame US-based teams for doing this. Whenever they're scared, they're going to come after personally by authorities in their jurisdiction. But it does create some problems, especially again when the communication is not good. Whenever teams aren't clear about what points mean, how they're accrued, and a lot of the whole point of crypto in some respect is having assets on chain so that no one can just go to the books in the back office and change things around, and so you know what you're getting. And that's actually the complete opposite of what's happening now. So I'm a bit of a critic of points, and there's some good aspects, of course, but I'd say that's my main criticism. And we've seen kind of the woes that can come from that whenever it's not handled properly.
Yeah, and I think another bad thing about points is that there's this kind of assumption, at least among many naive users, that the points to tokens transfer ratio could be 1-to-1, and it never is. It basically allows the teams to delay their tokenomics to fit the circumstances. And maybe that's the malicious angle, but it basically doesn't make them become transparent with what their tokenomics are going to be while they continue to collect points from users.
Yeah, exactly. It's a black box too. Sometimes they have the rules for you, but then sometimes the calculations aren't clearly defined. There's some projects that have done well with this, but other times it's not, and never know what you're getting. We've seen many instances personally where points aren't added up correctly, not on a consistent basis, and things like this. So I think it's a bit of a rough patch, and it's kind of like a band-aid solution until we get more regulatory clarity, which we've been clamoring for as an industry for years now. But that's just the way it kind of has to be. And this kind of leads us into one tweet we wanted to bring up from Hayden Adams, from founder of Uniswap, and he kind of gives his take on this whole tokens versus points and the current airdrop landscape. So we're going to read through these and kind of go over what we think.
Yeah, the first one he mentioned is tokens, not points, which I think we've discussed enough here.
Yeah.
There's don't farm the farmers, which he implies to mean basically don't set these incredibly high values of points or whatever just to get more and more people in, then delay a week and delay a week, which I think is fairly straightforward. But the third one is something that sort of interests me, and that's have real liquidity on day one, and that doesn't necessarily, at least according to Adams, mean have to have exchanges. Just get enough tokens in the hands of users so that there's real liquidity on the exchanges, and he says price discovery can happen.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues with like new tokens. If you launch a new token well, we've seen that the market loves new tokens. Like you saw at the beginning of this bull market, Celestia is the one that comes to mind, really had a meteoric rise over the first few months, and it's because the market likes new tokens, and it was really on the heels of the modularity narrative. So if you design it the right way, it can really benefit the users and kind of bootstrap a community, because everyone likes token price go up, obviously, and liquidity is a big part of that. And it's just really what the big strategy is to do that. And I think he says later here is to have a pretty high unlock value for users, but then outside of that, have some nice vesting schedules for investors and things like this. So I think that really speaks to that point.
Yeah. Next one he mentioned, and this is sort of playing on human behavior, and it's don't create absurdly high token supply to farm people. And related to that, keep your units that you're giving people rewards in a reasonable number. And you know, I use Kelp DAO, so I want to put that out there. But their strategy gave points. The fundamental unit of point was 1 million. So there was billions and billions and billions of points, which people think, oh, that's great. Yeah. But it's like there's trillions and whatever is after trillions of total points. So it sort of suckers people into that game, which, you know, is a little bit unfair to play on people's not emotions, but just how people mentally operate.
Yeah, they kind of got that from like, it's a meme coin thing first and foremost. We saw meme coins for the last couple of years have like absurdly high supplies in the billions. And then the thought is that kind of retail, if they're logging their Coinbase app, they're cracking up like, why buy Bitcoin when it's $60,000 as opposed to, I don't know, some Shiba Inu derivative coin that's 0.0001. And it seems that works a lot of the time, but it really doesn't benefit users because it's just kind of makes them think they're getting it at a good price when really they're not. So I think that's something, again, communication is key, and a lot of times these teams don't have good communication, and that's what it comes down to for me a lot of the time.
Yeah. The last thing he mentions, and we'll put this tweet into the into the video itself, but basically he says put real thought into carrying your decisions. And in my observation, obviously being older than most of these founders and crypto people, it seems like many of these protocols are essentially a bunch of 20 to 30-year-old engineers that are going as fast as they can. They're getting biased by any investors they have, and they're not making, there's no grown up in the room, is what I'm saying. They're not making rational decisions. In fact, they're making decisions because they told the community they'd make a decision on the first of the month, and it's now the last day of the last month they have to make a decision. Yeah. So, you know, I would advocate, and I get there is a bias towards older people in this, but I would advocate giving, like Hayden Adams says, giving some real thought to what your plan is and not winging it as you go along, because as we move forward, these protocols need to operate like real businesses, not like, high-tech startups in the 1980s where anything goes.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think that a lot of the time what surprises me is that some of these developers coming into space in some of these core teams don't seem to be users of the tech themselves, and that's where they get into trouble. Like, if you see like projects have an intern or a resident degen, that's actually super important in my experience, because these projects don't know how to communicate with users and understand what they actually want. And I understand they have separate interests from investors for personal gain and things like this, but at the end of the day, you can't have a successful system without the community, without the liquidity, because that's the fundamental driver. So you do have to give them some credit because they have to balance those multiple interests from maybe whales with a lot of liquidity, and they really bootstrap the protocol in that sense, and then the smaller guys also. So it is a difficult problem, but I think having a resident degen user would benefit a lot of these teams for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to take the other side of that coin, I'm also kind of shocked when I see, and I'm on Discord a lot, so I'm shocked when I see the Discord community get all over investors and founders when they get any piece of the initial pie. Now, I'm not saying give them everything, but it's like, why should they not get a piece at launch when they're the ones that took the initial risk and they're the ones probably getting paid well below market value?
That is true. Yeah.
And they the whole community needs to grow up in that sense.
Yeah. I think, what's your saying here?
Which saying? My saying, yeah. Decentralization is not socialism. Decentralization is equal access to liquidity. There's not this whole notion of take from the rich, give to the poor. It's still reward the risk takers. And whether that risk is $100 or it's $10 million, they need to be rewarded. okay? And it's you reap what you sow. And maybe this is a uniquely American native or narrative, because that's what we grew up with. But the whole idea that, you know, everyone needs a piece of the pie. If they invested $100, they need to get $1,000 out in 3 months, which is ludicrous. That doesn't work anymore. That's not the real world.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think crypto is interesting in one sense because you have really like open access free markets where obviously anything goes. Like you get your money stolen, it's gone. Hacker steals money, it's gone. There's no banks clawing it back. There's no written contracts. You can call the authorities. That doesn't happen, right? So you have like really free, open, libertarian style markets.
Yes.
And then also there's this kind of countervailing force, which is this kind of collectivism that's a part of like these DAOs, and everyone goes community. So it's kind of like these two forces at play. And whenever one kind of tips too far in one way, everyone kind of reverses back to the other side. But they really are kind of two sides of the same string. And it's interesting how crypto kind of ties them together. And that's maybe a topic for another time to go deep into, but I just find that interesting topic of discussion.
All right, well, I think we've wrapped that up. Let's take a short break here. We're going to dive into some other stuff next.
Yep, let's do it.
So turning to traditional finance, there are some companies that make the majority of their money from crypto. In the US, Coinbase is one, but another one is Robinhood. And Robinhood just got hit by a Wells notice from the SEC. Ben, can you talk more about that? What are they doing?
Yeah, so this is another instance of our friend Gary acting out, I would say, and really just coming after the crypto industry. And there's a lot of speculation. That's due to his ties with Elizabeth Warren, and he's shooting for higher positions in government, and we don't need to talk about that. But I do think it's interesting that they went after Robinhood specifically, because Robinhood did take some extra steps recently to integrate crypto at kind of a further level. What they did was integrated with Arbitrum, I believe, to allow trades through decentralized exchanges on Arbitrum, which is a really cool thing to do. And I kind of think this just brings up a broader point about why is the US so tough on crypto? Is it really just this one man, his crusade against crypto, wanting to bring it down for his own personal advancement? Because it goes so firmly against core American values that it doesn't make sense to me or to other crypto people.
Yeah, like this is private property rights.
Yeah. I looking at it from a first principles perspective, it makes absolutely no sense, and it's kind of sad as an American to see it happening because other countries are light years ahead of us in terms of advancing this technology and integrating it, because it could help a lot of people, and we've always been at the forefront of these technologies, and it's kind of sad to see it happen.
New segment. Dap me up. Hi everyone. This week's DAP for DAP of the Week is ZeroLend. And specifically, I'm going to go through ZeroLend on Linnea, as it's the most well-developed of the blockchains that ZeroLend is on, and it's also the largest protocol on Linnea. Here you can see the ZeroLend homepage and all the assets it supports. There's a whole bunch down here, but we're going to focus today on just ETH and USDC. About these numbers, you can see your APY you get for supplying and what you pay to borrow, as well as the zero tokens you get in percentage terms for supply and borrow. Today, I'm going to show you how to deposit both ETH and USDC, how to borrow and loop a little USDC, and then a neat feature of Linnea, because it's an Aave fork, I believe, on how to repay it all at once to unloop. So let's get started. First, let's click on Dashboard to go to the dashboard. This shows you what assets I have in my wallet that I can supply, and I'm going to pick ETH to supply. I'm going to supply 5 ETH. This is coming from my hot wallet, so it's a little bit quicker to do this rather from my cold wallet. But I'm using Rabby. I've supplied 5 ETH. And you should see this pop up in 1 second. Next, I'm going to supply USDC. And I'm going to supply 500 USDC. First, I have to approve that because I try to clean out all of my approvals regularly on Rabby so I don't get scammed too much. Then I'm going to have to click again to supply. All right, now I'm supplying. Let's confirm that. And when this is done, you'll see under
the Your Supplies area that I have 5 ETH and 500 USDC supplied. Now let's borrow. So I'm going to go to the borrows. Let's borrow. I'm going to borrow. The max I can borrow is 12.9K. So let's just say I'm going to borrow 12,000 USDC. It tells you what your rewards are. It says, okay, that'll take your health from infinite to 1.11, which is sort of low, but it's okay given we're looping. We're going to end up looping similar assets. Acknowledge the risks. Okay, that borrow. Sign off on it. Now you see I have 12,000 USDC borrowed, and that shows up as 12,000 plus the change I left over in my wallet. Now to loop it, I'm going to go ahead and supply that same 12,000 USDC. So now I'm supplying it, and you can see that'll take my health from 1.11 back to almost 2. So that would be one loop. And we're going to do this one more time, and then I'm going to show you how you can repay it all at once, which is a nice feature of ZeroLend. Again, let's borrow another 12,000. Again, always monitor your health. Let's borrow, it's down to 1.04, which is a little bit low. You'll see as soon as I redeposit this, it will go back up to a reasonable level. Okay, so let's look at a couple things here. Scroll back up and let's look at the top. You can see in this wallet my net worth, which is supplies minus borrows, is 16K. Net API is all of the APIs, including the zero APIs that I'm getting, minus the APIs I'm paying, which is in this case is only the USDC APY. Let's say I'm done. I want to close this position out. I can hit repay. Now, I don't have $24,000 to repay in my wallet. I only have 77 and 71 cents, but ZeroLend has this neat feature where you can click right here and click AUSDC, which is the sort of internal representation, and basically tell it to just directly pay back the loaned amount with, the borrowed amount with the loaned amount, all in one step. So I click on repay, the AUSDC with the AUSDC, sign that transaction, and when it's done, you can see the borrow is gone, and my USDC in my wallet is back down to just $500 with the original 5 ETH. So that's a basic intro to how you use ZeroLend. If there's interest in this, I can later go over how to collect your rewards and how to stake them. So let us know in the comment section, and we'll give you what you want.
Tweet of the week. Vance Spencer. All financial and blockchain primitives will be commoditized, and only branding will set them apart. In the end, only community will matter. I like this tweet. I like it a lot because I see a lot of teams that try to promote the technological superiority of their project, of their blockchain, of whatever it is. And to be honest, no one really cares. What people care about is making money, they care about free money, and they care about memes or the vibes of the project. And you see this over and over again. The project with the better vibes win. And memes were the best performing asset class in crypto for this first half of the cycle, and there's no technology there. The entire premium on those tokens is the vibes, it's the community, it's the branding. And I think this is what, again, a lot of engineers don't understand. You need a really strong communications and branding team, and I think this is what Vance is speaking to. And at the end of the day, he's right. This is open source technology. All the software is out there. Whoever can bootstrap the most liquidity and community behind it will win. And that's why I like the tweet.
Yeah. And, Ben, doesn't that lead right into, though, ZK Sync had, I think, arguably the best technology, and they had the mojo. And it seems to me that they've sort of taken a very back seat right now.
I agree. People are just getting fatigued, I would say, and I'm one of those. I've been an early supporter. I've been using the chain for over 2 years. I was a ZK Sync Lite user. I've been around. I've used all the early apps. And it's just kind of disappointing because they really have been doing most of the things right. But again, the one thing they're not doing is listening to the community. And in this scenario, I'm sure they will do it right, but kind of building and keeping that momentum is key. And that's kind of why I've been let down. So hopefully they're coming soon with the token, but I really think they missed that golden opportunity. Right before we kind of traded down from Bitcoin all-time high, ETH all-time high, right in that pocket would have been nice, but it doesn't look like we're going to get it.
Yeah, and maybe ZK Sync is going to fall into one of the little sayings I have, which is, pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered.
Yeah.
Maybe they were waiting for that little bit extra, and they lost a lot in that time frame.
It's possible. I guess we'll see. And I don't want to count them out because I love the ZK Sync team. I love the chain. I love the partnerships they're doing. They just brought on Lens Protocol as a hyperchain. It's pretty interesting. And with Friendtech coming back with their V2, I think Crypto Social is another topic that we could explore soon. And they do a lot of things right, but I'm just a little disappointed. So we have the oldest man in crypto with us, Tonto. He's been around the block, he's done many industries, and I think it's useful to get his perspective about it because as a younger crypto native, this is what I know. I know these markets, I know how these things operate, but he can kind of draw parallels between his experience and this kind of new internet money crypto space that are really interesting. And I think that you'll get into it, but kind of build on your statement earlier that decentralization equals access. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so basically in my old field, which was robotics and technology, the venture capitalists were the people that could provide liquidity and could get access to the great returns that those tech companies would put off when they went public or had a product. Well, I kind of view crypto in the same way, and I think it's a contrarian view where, I'm farming these protocols, farming these blockchains, just like everybody else. And the blockchain has their token drop, the protocol has their token drop, but they require staking, or they put in rules that require you to keep liquidity there for 3, 6, 7 months, and people go absolutely crazy. They say it's not fair, which drives me nuts. The whole not fair thing just drives me nuts. It is fair. There's no rules here. But the way I look at all this, though, is if I was a VC supplying my capital to a new company, if I want to maintain my stake and help that company grow, when they grow and they need more capital, either I pony up again, I certainly don't take my money out, and if I don't pony up again, then I get no rewards. So at least from my perspective, which may be longer term than just wanting to buy, a steak dinner for my wife from the airdrop money, I don't see the big issue here. Why can't we be required to keep our funds in longer? Particularly if that was told to us up front. And as you said previously, and I'm sure you'll say again, transparency is needed to make that happen. But I think everyone that's serious about crypto, not the e-beggars, get rid of them, but that's serious about crypto needs to understand that there's a longer term liquidity profile here than just 3 months airdrop, get out. That's what's going to help us sustain real businesses in crypto, not ones that have a TVL that goes to 500 million and then to zero. Well, that's this week's show. I think we covered a lot of mostly serious topics, a little bit of fun in there. We want to keep adding fun in as we go. But another thing we want to do is kind of engage the community. So we're going to have a segment that's Ask Ben and the Grand Tonto anything about crypto, obviously. But if there's other fun stuff that might be tangential related, you can ask that too. So we will get some information in our video. Look down in the header or the footer to see some contact info. Send us questions there, and we will answer them on our next show.
Sounds good.
All right. And remember, I forgot what I was going to say.